Hey there, it's Andrea, and welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today I have with me Lonna Bell. Lonna is the founder of POISE Inc., which stands for Power of Inspirational Strength and Encouragement. She's an artist, she's a speaker and facilitator, and in her day job, Lonna works in the area of equal employment opportunity. So, Lonna, it's great to have you on the Voice of Influence podcast.
Thanks for having me, Andrea.
Now, in your bio, we were talking about that you have done a lot of facilitating and speaking. Can you tell us a little bit more about Poise and what you have been and what your message kind of has been about over the past 25 years?
So one day I was at work when I was in the Navy, and poise came to me, the phrase poise, and what brought about the power of inspirational strength and encouragement um, is as my message is that that's what's needed is inspiring, strengthening, and encouraging. I've been facilitating since I was in high school, so 25 plus years on sexual harassment, sexual abuse, drug and alcohol program prevention, and equal employment opportunity in the areas of disabilities, in the areas of, like I said, equal employment opportunity like Title VII, discrimination, federal employment areas, and in the Navy, equal opportunity as well. So it just brings out that, really inspiring, strengthening, and encouraging people in these areas to be the best that they can be, but also encouraging and strengthening no matter what happens in life, because things do happen in life, and things have happened to me throughout life, where I really needed those areas. So it was just dropped in my spirit to have that brought to me to really engage and bring that to life, and bring that to people. Because if I need it, I know that there's others out there that need it as well.
Oh my goodness, it's so true. Um, so would you mind telling us a little bit, like, first of all, in high school, why high school? Like, how did you get interested or become an advocate for this message in high school?
So I was a peer counselor in high school, and we went to a class to be facilitators for sexual abuse, sexual assault, and sexual harassment for our school. So we were taught to facilitate these programs for our high school. And then some girls in the high school had been sexually assaulted, and they asked me to lead a group of girls who'd been sexually assaulted, to be their counselor, to be their peer counselor in the group. Someone came from out in town to oversee the group, but then they asked me to be the peer counselor of that group, to be the one that they were comfortable with. So that's where my journey started, in that area, my senior year in high school.
Hmm.
And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with public speaking, and I fell in love with facilitating in that area.
Hmm. Wow, that's a pretty big deal for girls in your high school to trust you with that kind of I don't know, partnership. Why do you think that they reached out to you in particular?
Truthfully, I don't know. I I don't I couldn't even tell you. It's been so many years. I don't know. I was just that person. I guess I was also a tutor for a student who was in a wheelchair. He was a special needs student. He was a sophomore in high school, and he was on an IEP. And I was brought in with him, to tutor him in algebra. And it just went from there, and then they just saw how I did in the facilitating of the classes. I was asked to be the one to facilitate the classes. They just saw something, and that's just how it went. I played softball with the girls, like a couple of the girls too. I was the captain of the softball team, and I don't know, they just saw something in me.
Yeah, and they must
And
have trusted you.
yes, they had to be in a situation like that.
Yeah,
Um, Otherwise, that's a very delicate situation.
yeah.
Mhm.
But later in life, this became a little more even personal experience. Is that right?
Very much so in many areas.
Is there anything that you want to tell us about your personal journey in this?
So, as life went on, I was going on. I was in the Navy, and a situation occurred where I had an injury to my brain, and it changed my life. Um, and I began to have seizures.
Mm,
And through that, because of where it's at, because it's in my frontal lobe, the injuries in my frontal lobe, and then adding the seizures to it because of how tired it makes me, because of what it being in the frontal lobe, because that's where all the new information comes into. I can't just keep on taking information and information and information in. I have to be able to process it and then take stuff from the back, and it takes longer for me to make decisions. I had to learn a new way of doing tasks. I had to learn a new way of writing reports. I had to learn a new way of doing life.
mm,
My life completely changed in one instance, in one fatal, like, 3-second period. Um, and not only just from the trauma, because that didn't immediately happen when it occurred. That happened a few years after the incident happened, but to add to that, the psychological trauma that came from that as well, which is also unseen.
mm,
Um, all of that coupled together completely altered my life in ways that I never imagined could alter my life. And through that, I had to learn a completely different way of living. And in psychology, we call it cognitive dissonance, where everything that I had learned growing up, everything that I thought was right, was completely turned upside down. And I now had to figure out that what I thought was right was no longer right. And then to add this injury to it, I had to figure out how to do life. I was very successful for a very long period of time. And then all of a sudden, my behavior changed.
mm.
I couldn't function anymore in daily living. It was hard for me to cope. Um, and my life just started to take a downward spiral,
Mm.
and things changed.
When you say that things that were you used to think were right, you found out weren't right, do you have an example of that? What kind of things are you talking about?
So, the way that I thought that women were supposed to be treated, the way that I thought that relationships were supposed to be, the way that I thought that roles were supposed to be in relationships.
Hmm.
Um, I saw in my marriage that not everybody believes the same thing, and that sometimes in a household, people will go to many lengths to have control over somebody else, and to do that, they will turn to violence. Um, so that's where it changed, and so my view of the world changed.
Mm,
My view of trust changed. My view of boundaries changed, and what people will do to maintain control to get somebody to do what they want them to do changed. So
mm.
that's the cognitive dissonance that took place,
Yeah.
which psychologically changed me and caused emotional trauma, but then it also caused physical trauma, and caused the seizures to take place as well, which from PTSD is, I've learned over time, depending how it's processed, depending on where the injury is at, can cause seizures as well. And that's how mine has came out. And all of this, to see me every day and to see where I've came in life, to see how successful I've become, to see the goals that I've achieved and what I've accomplished, to look at me, you would never know that
Hmm.
all of this stuff takes place within me, or the things that I have to do to be able to do what I do. There's a lot that goes on internally to be able to get there. And there's a lot that's gone on internally, a lot of work that's taken place, a lot of doctors that I've had to see in order to get to where I've gotten to, and a lot of work myself that I've had to do, a lot of very hard work, on myself to become self-aware, of where I'm at, what state I'm in at different times, what I need to do to take care of me, in order to get to where I am, which is also really the foundation for the poise. This all lays that foundation on the importance of inspiring, strengthening, and encouraging. Because in order to really have that foundation, I first had to do that for myself. Because if I can't have those values embedded in me and fully stand on that as my rock and my cement, as my layers, I would never be able to go out and do that for other people, because that's where it starts. Because we have to be able to have that. But this is all hidden. And this is also an area where it's very scary to talk about because it's not understood. So for us to sit here and talk about it just between you and I, Andrea, this means that we came a long way.
Right.
For us to be able to just have the conversation, and for you to reach out to me to say, hey, can we talk about this? And for us to be bold enough to say, yes, let's get this out there. Let's say, like, let's start having this conversation. Leaders, let's be aware of what our employees are struggling with when they say, I'm having these things going on, please help me, because this is what's happening. Like, I'm here, like, we can be successful, but it takes work on the employee's part as well. As I can tell you, it takes a lot of work, but it takes a lot of understanding, it takes compassion, it takes back and forth communication.
Mm. So many important points that you make here. And you'd mentioned the getting to a point where you were really kind of spiraling down.
Mhm.
I wonder if you could speak to that person or people that might be around somebody, surrounding somebody who has spiraled down to that place where they're really feeling hopeless or whatever they're experiencing. Can you help us to understand their perspective, their point of view, and what we can do if we are somebody that's surrounding that person, how we can help them?
So that one's difficult, because when we get to that point, we become very isolated.
Yeah.
And we can be argumentative, um, very disassociative. We can be very, very much disconnect.
Can you explain disassociative? Because I don't think we've really talked about that. I know what that means, but I think it would be helpful for
Okay.
people to kind of know what that looks like.
So disassociative is where we kind of, the next word that I said is disconnect, but disassociate with everything around us, where it's like I'm standing here and say, like, Andrea and I, like, right now we're on Zoom, but say that we're sitting right next to each other, or we're in the same room across the table. I see you there, but I have no association with you. Even though we're communicating, I have nothing to do with you. I'm not connecting with my bed. I'm not connecting with my family. I'm not connecting with my food. I'm not connecting with my blanket, with anything. It's like I'm just completely a shell where there's nothing around me. It's just I'm there, a skeleton. And there's no feelings, there's no emotions, there's no connection, there's nothing there but a person. And it's important in that state, when somebody is there, to really connect to the floor, pay attention to the surroundings, say, okay, I'm here. I'm not there anymore. I'm not wherever that is, wherever it's taking me to. I'm here, I'm present. I have friends. It's important to be reminded that, okay, I'm making a difference. My work is valued. My work is important. I'm, contributing to the team. I'm making a difference on the team, even if it's little contributions, because that may be all that they could do for a little while. but to be reminded that overall their contributions are making a difference. And that's to bring them back to the present state. It may seem like it's a lot of work for a while, especially when people have um, a lot of work to do, but we have to understand where people are and to build teams and to bring people in. This is what's going to make the team stronger. This is what's going to bring the people in, and this is what's going to make them work even harder for the team. So these are just some skills to remember. And then on the employee side is just to take those few minutes, or the individual side is just to take those few minutes when we start to feel that disconnect and say, okay, I, I'm I I'm feeling myself start to be pulled away, or I'm feeling myself start to be taken back to a place that I've left. So let me remember where I am. Me remember that I have friends who love me. Let me remember that I have family who love me, or let me remember, or let me touch something that brings me back to the present and let me breathe.
Mm.
Because all of these things are important.
In a workplace setting, if you're seeing somebody really struggling, what is the appropriate thing to do? Especially if maybe you're a leader. I mean, it could be it could be a colleague, but I know that it can get a little tricky with leadership and trying to help other people. What do you suggest, or what do you know that we should be doing as leaders and mentors and colleagues if we're seeing somebody really struggling?
Paying attention to when we see behavior differences. Another thing is usually we see differences in work product. That's one sign. Um, but sometimes it's just somebody working from home. If they're usually at the office, somebody from working from home, if they can work from home, working from home for a little while, for like half a day, letting them have that time to regroup. Or if it's somebody who say something happened and they had an emergency health issue, checking in on them on their mental health. If you know that there's somebody who deals with things, give them some time to make sure that they're working from home, check in and see what they need. Um, Things like that.
That's a good point, to be able to give them that space. Ask them how's your capacity right now. So are there any laws around you shouldn't recommend counseling, or what are the boundaries, I guess, around that?
Um, it depends on the organization.
Okay. So you just have to find out from your organization what the rules are. Okay. The other part of your story is just your fight to come back, your fight to find out who you are now. Um, and and create this kind of life with who you are as you are now, and the things that you were talking about before, just relearning how to process information, relearning how to do so many different things. I'm like, wow, that must have taken so much energy and determination, and you must have had some support of some kind. I'm sure that there are other people that feel like there's no way out, that they're stuck. Can you share with us some of the things that helped you to move forward and kind of start to see some light and move toward that?
So I think my lowest point was um, I was I was working towards finishing my bachelor's degree, and I was staying with a friend of mine, And he told me that no matter what, I wasn't moving out until we figured out what was going on with me, because my seizures were at their highest.
Mm.
It was bad. I was having them multiple times a day, so many during the week. It was really bad. I had gotten put on academic suspension, and I was always really good in school. I have really high expectations. One of my mottos is it's the it factor. I'll come back to that to tell you exactly what it is, but you have to be the best at it. It's whatever it is. So you keep on doing it. The lowest point was when I got put on academic suspension for I had a 1.3 GPA, and I was always really good at school. It's because I couldn't keep up with my school. Like, I kept having seizures after seizures, and it ended up happening. And my financial aid got suspended too because I got put on academic suspension. Then I had to wait 6 months. I worked with my academic advisor. I had to wait 6 months to request to come back to school. So during those 6 months, I went and had EEGs done, had MRIs done, had CAT scans done, and I got into deep trauma therapy to figure out what was going on. And then I submitted a request for let them know everything, wrote everything out, and asked them to let me back in. And they let me back in. I got in with the disability accommodations office and requested an accommodation for school. And they allowed me extra days to do homework. And then if I had a seizure, I just had to notify them, and I got more extra days on top of that. And I ended up graduating with a 3.67 GPA. So I went from a 1.3 to a 3.67. So that made all the difference.
Yeah.
So I went from, what am I going to do? Like, this is bad, and putting everything out on the table, um, with some of the things that I addressed at the beginning, like picturing myself running off the balcony. I was
Mm.
that low to finishing my degree with a 3.67 and being sent a request to um, give the speech at graduation for the graduating class.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was wonderful. All because I did the work. But it took me being put on academic suspension, a really bad place, something I didn't want, but it had to happen.
Hmm.
To me putting in all of that work to figure it out, to me graduating. And then I got an email because I had an accommodation for school for the workforce recruitment program. And so I applied for it, and I got accepted into the WRP program and brought in, and that's how I got it to EEO and got brought in to the federal government that way. So me going through the hard work actually turned out to be beneficial, but I had to go through the hard work. And that's why I'm so willing to go through that hard work with people now too,
Hmm.
because I was willing to go through the hard work, but we have to go through the hard work.
Yeah. You know, I think about how it's easy to think that in business, people should just show up and be ready to do their jobs. But the reality is that we're all human and we're not always ready. Sometimes we have to have somebody check in with us and say, "How are you doing?"
Yeah.
Sometimes we need the extra buffer of time to be able to process what we need to figure out what our capacity is and what we can handle and what we can't, and but then have a path forward. It's a weighty responsibility, I think, for leaders to really think about, how can I be a support to my team, not just manage them, but be there for them and advocate for them and help them move forward in their careers, even if they are facing something that you don't realize is there because it's hidden until you see that there are some problems of some kind.
Yeah. And that's the hard part because dealing with emotions is difficult.
One of the things that we really encourage when we're talking about leadership with anybody that we're working with, we really encourage people to think about the fact that it's like we're all an iceberg. It's that simple illustration of, hey, you know what you see on the surface, there's so much more underneath of the surface.
Mm.
And so when you are struggling, when you see somebody struggling, or you're frustrated with them, or they're angry, or they're having some sort of reaction, instead of starting with um, the reprimand, or, I need to give you some feedback right now, um, maybe start with a little curiosity to find out what's going on underneath the surface. You're struggling right now. Is there anything going on that I need to know about,
Mm.
or any way that I can support you better? And giving people that chance to say what they need to say, if they're
Mm.
willing to take that chance, because people aren't always ready to say. What are your thoughts on that?
Leadership is hard, but it can be easy if we make it.
I like that. Say more.
Um, we still manage if we think about people, people will do the work. And it won't be so hard because they'll want to do the work. They'll want to come to work. The complaints that we get, the grumblings that we won't have so much because we'll be thinking about people. Will everybody be happy all the time? No. That's that's just reality. That's people. We're dealing with people. Human behavior says that we're always going to have some people that are not going to be happy because we cannot get away from people and their lives because lives happen,
Mm-hmm.
situations happen. They may go home today and we never know what's going to happen to them, and they're going to bring that to work. We have to be ready for that as leaders. If we're just going to manage a workload, then what are we doing? Because that's not leading a team. Managing a workload is simple, it's checking a block. But leading a team is growing and developing people
Mm.
so that they can grow and develop more people because people are going to reach an age where they're going to retire. We need to grow and develop people so that they can move up. We need to grow and develop people so that they know that they are needed in the workplace, so that their lives matter,
Mm.
so that they're worthy.
Mm.
Because without that, we're going to have people unhappy coming to the workplace.
Mm.
And that's not fun. I like fun workplaces. Yeah, but that doesn't happen too much.
Fun is important. I mean, work is so much of our lives. We need to be able to thrive at work. When you think about people that are coming up in the workforce, what are some of those key things that you really hope that you can pass on to them as a leader yourself? What do you hope to pass on to the next sort of level or generation of workers that are coming up?
I'm going to expand on that because it's kind of something that I like to pass on to everybody,
Sure.
especially given what I do. I'll go with your question. One is to always remain curious. It's to never think that a question is a wrong question. and to always ask questions, to always be willing to listen, and that effective communication includes listening, and it doesn't include just talking, because talking isn't listening. So remember to listen, because listening is so important. Listening is important to growth. Sitting back and paying attention and observing is important to growth. And be careful and think before speaking,
Mm.
because talking too soon may stop growth. Don't be scared to speak when you need to speak, because our voice matters.
Is there anything else that you would want to convey to those who maybe have a hidden disability?
My thoughts are to always to continue to learn more about it,
Mm.
to always be encouraged to grow around it, and to never be scared to become someone new if it causes a change.
That's really good. Lonna, thank you so much for taking your time and sharing your story and your your experience of growth and success and encouraging us today. If people are interested in contacting you, where can they contact you?
They can email me at Lonna Lonna .g as in girl .bell@gmail.com, or they can call me at 757-274-6137.
Do you have any last piece of advice for somebody who wants to have a voice of influence?
To never be scared to use your voice, and always continue to fly.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you for everyone for listening.